Okay, so let's get started today. Well, I'm sitting here with Dean Bennion. He's a managing partner and also the co-founder, right, of
Yes.
Kimball Creek Partners, which is a wealth management company, and he is a certified financial planner. And just like this says, we're having a Q&A with a certified financial planner. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree with finance concentration from the University of Washington. And he also has a Master's of International Management degree from Thunderbird School of Global Management, which is now part of Arizona State University. And so, just so that I don't talk too much about who he is, I think we'll just leave it to Dean to tell us, a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you became interested in this field of financial planning.
Well, thanks. It's fun to be here as a fellow University of Washington alumni. Always proud of the UW. Like to see purple and gold in Tacoma. Yeah, so I'm probably somewhat unique in that my kind of path started when I was 12 years old. And I tell this story a lot. When I was 12, my dad did, this was in the 70s, none of you were around then, but this, if you read your history, we had the oil embargo. It wasn't a particularly great time for the family vacation. And my dad loaded my sister and I and my mom. We all got in the family station wagon and we did a 26-day trip all the way across the country and back. He really wanted us to see things like the Ford Motor Company, how cars were built, and just business. And part of that trip, we ended up spending, we visited the Chicago Board of Trade, the Futures Exchange there. And I think that's when I really got hooked because I started there. I mean, if any of you have ever seen some of the pictures, it's just massive chaos and people are flashing can signals. And if you ever want an old movie, if you've seen Trading Places, that's pretty fun. Eddie Murphy, yeah. That's a great one. And at 12, I just thought this was amazing. I just thought that whole free market system was fantastic. And then we went to the New York Stock Exchange and it was tame by comparison, but still the concept of free markets, I was hooked. And so from kind of all through high school and I took every business class I could get involved with. And then I don't know, just fascinated with it. I actually went around when I was, I would have been a sophomore at the University of Washington. And I interviewed rich people or people I thought were rich. And I wanted to know, how'd you do it? And I mean, I talked to, there was a surgeon, car dealer, just all different kinds of people. And they told me something that I've never forgotten. And it was interesting because I talked to at least a dozen different unique people. And they all had one common theme. I mean, some people talked about real estate, stocks, and that was all different, how they invested. And they each had different careers. But to a person, and if you take one note from today, I'd leave you this. To a person, they said they all started saving. And even in college, they saved. And almost 100% of them said 10%. They paid themselves first. That number came up over and over and over again, 10%. And they saved that. So, as a financial planner, and we've talked about, the class that's going to be next year. We're excited about financial literacy. Some of the basics. I've worked with thousands of different people. Most of them you would consider financially well off, high income earners. It's usually what comes to see us about financial planning and estate planning. But learning to live on less than you make, pay yourself first, and understanding that, and not sacrificing. Because I just got back from a trip to Costa Rica, so it's great. If you haven't been, you should go. But that comes out of a different budget. That doesn't come out of my pay yourself first budget. That's got to be budgeted for outside of that. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. Just anyways.
So you're a certified financial planner, and your journey started when you were 12 years old.
Yes.
Was that your first job out of college? How did you get into your current role that you're actually doing?
Yeah, so I actually, this was, way back when we were stockbrokers. I mean, they didn't really, financial planning wasn't really a thing
Okay.
this would have been in the early 80s. I mean, this was.
So the whole idea of like a financial planner,
You
wealth
you
management,
did, yeah, I mean, you
uh-huh.
sold stocks, right? And part of that, you did financial planning, sort of, and that's how you got into it. So I actually, again, as part of that interview process, when I interviewed wealthy people, I actually went to investment firms. Back then it was names like Smith Barney, who became part of a whole bunch of others. But I sat down with the managers and said, hey, I want to work in this industry. I'm a sophomore. What do you want to see on my resume? And I'm 62. And I probably look a little older now, especially to all of you. But back then I looked like I was 12 and I was 20. And they said, you're really young. Why don't you go ahead and get a master's degree? And again, part of the hard thing about the investment business, getting into it, is you need clients. And so back then we just called people and sold stuff. So you had to have some selling. So they all wanted some national sales experience. And I happened to have a mentor that worked for Johnson & Johnson, and they were hiring part-time salespeople. So while I went to college, I stopped doing my job. I took the selling job there, and then I took every finance class, and I went on. And so I did a master's. I just went straight into my master's degree to do a master's in international management, which is now an international MBA program. But it was mostly because I was so young.
Well, we have a lot of business majors here, and I know there's some of my finance students here as well. As I know that few of them are actually interested in this field.
Yes.
What would you advise them today in today's environment of how to get into the field?
Yeah, so I would, there's a lot of ways to start. I mean, I work for large wirehouses, and I think as a new person, if you could get on with, a Fidelity or a bank, they have those kind of beginning positions, not so much as a teller at the bank, but, I mean, that might be now, where you're just getting
Like
some
a
experience.
relationship manager,
Okay. Something. You have to find a way to get clients. And to be honest, if you have zero financial experience, that's pretty hard to talk people into giving you their money or trusting you with their money. And so a lot of people got into this industry because they were already maybe small business owners, or they came in a little later into the industry. But I would say if I were a University of Washington graduate, I don't think my plan was too bad. Get a degree. I think if it were me, I mean, my degree is finance. That's not bad. I'd be an accountant. You're an accountant. I think accountants are good. But I know extremely successful people in our industry. A friend of mine, her degree's in interior design. I'm not so sure it's the degree as much as the ability to learn. That makes sense. And I think that's why most firms require a 4-year degree. They want to see that you can learn. Because frankly, everything I know, there are some basic tools I learned at the UW many years ago and things I still use today. But the fact is, the world changes, right? And so, Jordan, we're talking about computer science. I mean, I have friends that, that are my age that started at Microsoft when no one heard of it, right? And they talk about how the things that they're working on now are like 3, 4, 5 generations ago. The stuff they learned in college is completely done. So that ability to learn and tackle it, to have a problem and to figure it out, to get that information and then communicate it effectively, I think those are really important, because tax laws are going to change. Things are going to change in the financial world. You need to be able to have that skill of learning. So if you have a particular degree, I mean, history is one that, amazingly, I'm not here to sell degree programs, but I think you don't have to do a business. I would say if one of you came to me and was looking for a job, I just would want to know that I'm not sure that the degree would be as much as, was it challenging? My son works with me. He has a PhD in immunology. So, I mean, and I think that's awesome. I mean, he knows how to analyze, he knows how to think, figure out what problem we should even be looking at and to analyze it. And he's been a tremendous resource at the firm. But again, that's that learning how to learn and how to identify a problem and find out solutions. You don't have to necessarily come up with the solution because a lot of it's out there, but you do need to be able to understand what people need. Every person's different. Every financial situation that I look at, it's unique. And that's the challenge that AI has, right? I mean, we all have these unique situations, and your ability to use tools like I think AI is fantastic. We use ChatGPT all the time. It saves a lot of work, but it doesn't get you to the level of personalization that you need.
So then, like, going back to your role as a certified financial planner, you know, like I guess like you help individuals and families with wealth. What does that look like? I mean, like, what does a financial planner do with those individuals and families?
You bet. This is probably hard to believe. I don't know, maybe some of you are super wealthy and you already know this, but most people who haven't had to deal with a large sum of money don't realize that. I'm not looking for any pity. I'm not saying that. But as wealth increases, the level of complexity in your life also increases. It's not without its own challenges. One, I mean, I had a friend who won the lottery.
Oh, wow.
Which he was a part-time ski lift operator. I was brand new and worked for the Bank of Nova Scotia. Just my first job out of college as a stockbroker. And he had nothing. He won $3.7 million lump sum tax free.
And that was back in 1980s, right?
That was 1984. Is that when I started? No,
So
1987. No, I'll get it right.
About 50 years ago.
It was a long time ago.
Is that 50? Yeah.
No, it's 30. Anyways, but it ruined his life. I mean, it just honestly ruined his life. And you see that all the time. I actually tried to write a book and I never finished it about now you see it, now you don't. Yeah, well, it wasn't just him, but it's I called it Now You See It, Now You Don't. I watch people who get like lump sum tax settlements and large amounts of money that's just kind of thrust on them. And it's just can really mess with you. And so I know plenty of wealthy people that are really well grounded and good people, but generally you don't know that about them, and then others that kind of mess with. But my point is, as a financial planner, there's more complexities. When you're a student and you're starting somewhere, I don't know how old you are, but we'll call it 18 to 30 for maybe some of us got started later. I mean, there's some basic things that you need. And that's what we hope to do in our course, is talk about those kinds of things to get you there. Kind of like going to the gym the first time. Somebody needs to help you to know what the machines are, but you kind of have to show up and do the work.
And also the course that Dean is referring to is what we see on the second, the middle part on the right there. It says TBUS 490 Personal Finance Class. It's a special topics. And everyone here at the university can sign up. There is no prerequisite for that. And we're going to be, I believe it's like it's during winter quarter 2 credit. It's either pass or fail, and it's going to take a lot for you not to pass. Okay, just want to let you guys know that. And also we meet on Wednesdays from 1:30 to 3:30 in the Key building. You can look that up on the campus map. And Dean and I have been actually like working on developing this course for a while. And so like and basically we started from like in the beginning of like, okay, let's just try to build something up on our own. Let's see like what we could put together to like, hey, there's some great resources out there on the internet. Why don't we utilize some resources that are already there? But out of that whole thing, I feel like we were able to actually put together a really good course. Like I say, it's open to anyone. It's open registration right now. But maybe you could talk a little bit about that course and also what kind of things we might be covering. Do you want just a little brief?
Absolutely.
Okay.
How am I for time? I want to finish my last. I'm gonna finish my last comment because I never really told you what we do.
Okay.
I just kind of started, and so when people talk about how you get money, more complexity, and so really people come see us when they have they're generally at a crossroads. They're either, I mean, we help people that are just getting started, but the core of our business is 40-year-old entrepreneurs that have some kind of liquidity, 50-year-old diligent savers, and 60-year-old pre-retirees. Those are the core people that come and see us. And you think about those stages in life. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur and you've had a big liquidity event, you sold your company and now you've been successful, maybe you've been working really hard, maybe you had a really good job, but now all of a sudden you have $10 million. What do you do? Well, when you have $10,000, it's pretty easy to go to Robinhood and kind of play around. And because while it's a lot of money for you now, if it blows up, you realize, you know what, I'll make it back, right? But you have $10 million, you might never get that opportunity again. So you can't just, so having a good plan is important at any stage, but it becomes kind of critical when you have these types of events. So that those three categories are kind of who we tend to work with most. And then we have the final group, our existing clients. A lot of our clients have been with us 20, 30 years. You build the plan, you help them execute the plan, and then they retire, and then you're kind of managing things. We manage the funds till they die. You know, till they die and transition to it. Well, I've got some families we've worked with 4 generations of the family, so there's a generational part to that. Well, very satisfying. If you're interested in this area as a career, I would say certified financial planner is a lot less high finance and a lot more very personal relationships. They're my family. And they're my dear friends. One of the reasons people in our industry work well into their 70s, because they're my best friends. I mean, I've worked with many of them for decades, and they know that I care about them and that I'm going to put their interests first. And so if you'll do that, you know, one guy back when I did all those interviews, so I was big on just going out and encourage you to do that, just interview people. I went out and remember talking to one very successful investment advisor. He'd been in the business. I hadn't even started, and he'd been in forever. And he pointed to the coat rack and he said, "Never forget, the firm is where you hang your hat. Your clients pay your salary. If you remember that, if they're your boss, you'll always have a job." And so if you like that kind of one-on-one, personal, long-term relationship, and that it's a very rewarding career. If you hate people and you'd rather be there are other financial things that works really well for, but probably not if you're going to be what I do with you need to care about people and kind of, there you go. So then that was what do we do, right? We care about people.
So now how are we transitioning what you do to this course now, right?
Right. So one of the things that for me, one of the reasons I think I started in 2019. I first talked to Althoff,
exactly,
and then COVID hit and it kind of got derailed. But I think the university's had an interest in your basic financial literacy for a long time, because it honestly, whatever you choose to do in your career, that's great. But if you don't learn a few simple financial things, it's going to be hard for you, because we just live in a world that requires a basic understanding of some financial principles. It doesn't have to be your life, shouldn't be your life. I mean, necessarily.
That's why we have certified financial
But
planners.
that's great. But you don't have to be all geeked out over the New York Stock Exchange. It just, that stuff isn't important to a happy life. But there are some basic things that will make for a really miserable life. And one of them is you just get buried in debt. And it's really easy. And it comes from kind of a misunderstanding of money. And so that was our interest, I think, and a shared interest, that when I saw that the university had that interest, I wanted to be part of that, because, well, the career's been very good to me, and I wanted to help others. I hope I can help people that come in. The goal of the course is to give you some basic tools that will help you in a variety of areas. Everything from just basic understanding of savings and investing to things like insurance and taxes and debt, credit cards, loans, what are things that you should be doing? I just call it the basic blocking and tackling that I wish every, frankly, teenager knew. I just spoke to a group. I told you it's been a couple weeks now, a group of 12 to 18-year-olds, and kind of did a little half-hour thing. I mean, I take every chance I can to talk about this stuff, because that paying yourself first, living on less than you make. If you will learn some basic principles, you will have so many more choices in your life and so many more opportunities to do things that matter in your life. That, they say money isn't happiness, which I completely agree. But the mismanagement of money, or if money controls you, it's also incredibly painful. And we hope with this class to avoid a lot of that and to get you in a place, whatever you choose to do in your career, to be successful. I've had bus drivers that are millionaires, and I've watched people with 7-figure incomes. So that's $1 million plus. I'm thinking of somebody that made $1.7 million. The bus driver was a millionaire, and these 7-figure incomes go bust. And I know people think, oh, Dean, you're just kidding me. That's impossible. How can somebody make $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a year and be broke? I literally had a conversation with someone. We were talking about the budget, and he said, I've cut way back. I used to have 3 country club memberships, and I only have 1 now. Okay. I mean, we can all chuckle at that one, right? Okay. But that said, it is, I mean, it's kind of some crazy priorities. I've had lots in between. That's an extreme example, but I shared with Lisa this one. I mean, I've sat with people that make good incomes, and I consider a good income. They both made as husband and wife, both made over $200,000, and they had a couple $100,000 worth of credit card debt, and they were just buried at super high interest rates, and they were trying to figure out how to get out of it. And I said, well, first you got to stop spending. You make a good income, you got to. This isn't an irreversible thing, but they were in their 50s.
You actually covered a lot of things that I had questions on.
Go ahead, we'll go back. I have more stories.
So the first thing I want to talk about is you talk about setting priorities, right?
Yes.
And also financial goals kind of helps us set priorities. But then more than that, we talked about how it's how important it is to actually know your why when you're actually approaching financial planning, right? So could you talk about that?
And that's something we'll go deeper into that in this course, but understanding why you're doing it is really a big part of it. If I can, maybe because I've struggled kind of with my weight, so I use weight loss examples all the time. I've probably, like others, I'm sure none of you have done this because you're not old enough, but I've joined and left so many gyms in my lifetime. Right. And guess what? They all work, but you still got to do the work. And so where was I? But understanding why you want to do something really helps motivate you to get there. And again, some people are just really excited about making money, and that's great. Good for them. But personally, I like relationships and doing things with my family and my grandchildren now, my children, my friends. We were out on a boat. We had some friends come in from out of town. We're catching flounder yesterday on a beautiful day, just like this. I mean, that's a great day, right? And frankly, that doesn't cost very much money to do it, but it did require that I have some wherewithal. And but understanding what you want, because you can achieve just about anything. I mean, you probably, if you're not the right height, you're probably difficult to be a winner in the NBA. You probably have to have some physical characteristics, and I probably don't have the right fingers or the dedication to be a concert pianist, although I admire what they do. But you can accomplish a lot of different things. And when it comes to financial things, you can certainly accomplish a comfortable life and a rewarding and wonderful life. But it helps to understand what you want, because I I give an example all the time. We'll talk about lots of things, but let's say you want to have, your goal is to make $1 million. Well, that's not very hard to save $1 million. Any one of you could do it. You could work at McDonald's, you could save it. I guarantee you could do it. The question is, how long will it take you? And what we have to give up in the meantime, right? I mean, you can do it. I actually was very comforted one time when I was a young dad and I was really nervous, kind of getting started, and I was worried, and I realized if I worked 80 hours a week at McDonald's, I could pay all my bills. And I know that sounds bizarre, but I just relaxed. I said, well, that's my fallback. I could do that. And so I just went for it. I never had to go back to McDonald's, but when you understand what's really important to you, that helps you make choices that will guide your finances. You know, my wife and I really like to travel, right? And so let me give you a better example. I had well, she's my niece, and she had a small settlement because her foot got smashed by a piano in high school. So she got like $50,000 or something in insurance. I don't know, whatever. She had $50,000, and she decided she really wanted to go. This probably shouldn't talk about competing universities, but what's the one in Malibu?
Pepperdine.
Pepperdine, right? Expensive private school, and nothing wrong with Pepperdine, but well, it's expensive, right? And so she went there. Her goal was to be a teacher at the time, right? Well, look, there's a lot less expensive ways to be a teacher and be a great teacher and get a great education. If you want to be a high school teacher, you don't have to go to Pepperdine. That's not going to necessarily
And
get
just
you that.
FYI, their tuition's about $70,000 a year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so this was a little while ago, but she called me up because she wanted to go on their foreign exchange program for like 4 weeks in Italy. And I remember it was 20 grand at the time. And I just said, hey, do you realize, take 4 grand and travel Europe all you want. I mean, at the time you could take $3,000 or $4,000, you spend all summer in Italy if you want. But no way should you spend that. I said, that's enough money for you to pay for your entire undergraduate degree. And her mom didn't have much money. She's a single mom, or she lost her husband. He was young. Anyway, so there wasn't a lot of money. This was like her chance. And so I'll never forget, she called me up when she got done with that degree. She ended up changing degrees. She's I don't know, film making. She works for the Nature Conservancy now, travels all over the world, does films for them. And she paid for her entire education. And she came back a couple of years when it was all done. And she just thanked me. She said, thank you so much for talking me out of blowing that opportunity. But to me, that's a great example of what are you trying to accomplish. There's nothing wrong with going to Italy. I'm not trying to tell you shouldn't do all those great things that you want to do, but understand the cost of those things and what's really important. What's more important? I mean, I have a son that, he had a bunch of, you're at an age, it costs you nothing to travel. You want to travel? That's great. Because you can get a cheap ticket and go with some friends and share an Airbnb or something. You can travel for nothing at your stage in life, right? But be careful about, making rash decisions and know what you really want out of life. What's the end goal? If you know that, the plan is really easy to do. When we sit down as a financial planner, I spend a whole hour getting to know details about them. And the number one thing is what are your values? We talk about what matters to you. Then we talk about what are your goals, right? And what's important. We don't talk about assets until like number 4. Number 3 is relationships. Then we talk about their assets. Then we talk about things like who their other advisors are. We talk about how they want to communicate. And then finally we circle back and talk about interests. And that's how we even start. Very little financial stuff there, but most people just spend every day working and they never stop to look where that road's taking them. And so a good financial plan will take that first and then this other stuff. Why are you in school? What do you want to do? I mean, some of you are probably wondering, what am I doing? I don't know what I want to do yet. Well, great. You should sit down and figure out, let's talk about high level. Where do you want to get, right? Because you can get most places, but you have to plan. Without a plan, the lottery is not a high probability. Again, right? So those things happen. It's great. That's another. I could go on about tournament economics. That's another topic. We'll study.
Well, it's a basic like you do have to know your why, and also you do have to have a plan for your life, and also
Yes.
like it's talking about budgeting and saving. I know that's another topic which we're going to be covering in this class, is to aligning your budget with your goals, right? And so for students right now, you mentioned that when you interview a lot of wealthy people, they started saving very early on, even while they were a student. And so what type of effective budgeting techniques would you recommend to college students right now that they could implement today that they could start saving?
Great. If you're spreadsheet inclined, that's a great way. There's lots of free apps, budgeting apps and stuff that you can get that will help you. It all comes down to basic math. What you take in, what you spend, and what's left over. When I say pay yourself first, I treat that as an expense. That comes out first. And I try and get people to pretend. That's why things like 401k plans are so successful, and why employers now are given an incentive to make enrollment automatic. So the default is you get enrolled, you have to ask to be taken out of a plan when you start a new job, which is awesome, because then you just never see it. It's a lot easier to, most people see what goes into their bank and that's their budget. And if there's money left over, great. If there isn't, it's on a credit card or something. But having a written plan, and it can be done on a piece of paper, the old school, the Bob Hope generation that I still have clients in that area.
I don't think they know who Bob Hope is. So
They probably don't. That's right. Yeah. So the 80, 90-year-olds that I have for clients, let me say that. So these are people who've been around, born maybe during the Depression. There's still lots of those people out. They still have notebooks, and some of them still do it all by hand. Good for them. It works, right? But spreadsheets are a really nice way to do it. Cool docs or something. It just doesn't have to be fancy, but some way that you can show what comes in, what goes out, and then in that what goes out, you kind of have to. It's not just monthly, right? You just have to plan for the events, the tire that needs to be replaced. Stuff happens, and you gotta build a safety budget, and that's not the 10%. That's not what these people were talking about. The 10% is your fund to invest. And that's what you use to start a business. That's got to go into asset. And in the class, we'll talk about balance sheets, and I'll explain more about this so you understand. Well, one of the things, that's not important. Go to the class. There's so much more to go into that'd be really good.
We're just kind of trying to give you just an idea of what the class will cover. But one thing that I also want to talk about is investing and also wealth building, because I know that is something very important because you could budget and you could have savings, but then you have to invest in order for that money to actually build into something of substantial, right? And so
yes.
What are some basic principles that you want to leave the student with today regarding investing? Yeah,
so I have to be a little careful here. I work in one of the most regulated industries in the world. So I'm going to say a disclaimer. One, I'm not going to give you any investment recommendations. Nothing I've said today should be construed as an investment recommendation. And LPL Financial and myself are separate entities, even though they're the broker dealer that I use. So I have to get that out of the way. I have different licenses with I have a Series 7 license, which allows me to be a securities broker. I also have, I'm an investment advisor, so I'm a fiduciary. I have lots of licenses. We don't have to go into those, but I can't just make recommendations. So if you ask me, should I buy Microsoft now or not? Sorry, you should talk to your personal financial advisor. That's going to be my standard answer. So with that out of the way, again, you're at a great time to start investing. And I recognize, like most opportunities, it comes at a time when you probably don't have a great amount of disposable income. Good for you for being here, because an investment in yourself, an investment in your education is phenomenal. My wife went back to school and got a degree in nursing from the University of Washington when our youngest son was a junior in high school. He's now 30. So she's really only been in her career for about 10 years, and we're both 62. So whether you started early or late, doesn't matter. We had a conversation when we started, and I don't know what tuition is now, but so this is a decade ago. It was probably $12,000 a semester or a quarter. I don't know. I can't remember. $25,000 a year, I think. I don't know what it is, but it was probably 25. I think she told me it was $25,000 for the year. So she's on quarters. I don't know what that broke out to be, but she was just beside herself, because my wife's pretty frugal. She said, "We're spending $25,000 a year on my education." And I said, "Sweetheart, think about that. You spent $25,000 for 2 years. That's $50,000. My wife, a nurse, probably makes somewhere between, I don't know, probably $80,000 to $100,000 a year. It's huge demand." I said, "The payback is less than a year. I'll do that all day long. Show me an investment where I can get a payback in a year for that amount of money," right? That's awesome. So if you just think about your education, about what you get and what you're going to do, but again, this is knowing your why. What do you want? If you hate working, being a nurse, that's not a good choice. But again, what is the cost and what is the benefit? Back to my niece who pepperdine. Well, what does a teacher make? Well, starting isn't that great, but it's $70,000 a semester or a year, or whatever that was. Wow, it takes a long time to pay back that education that you probably could have got. I would think you could get your entire education for that, if not even, if you work it right. So again, that's about knowing your why, what you want. What's a good investment? Well, certainly investing in yourself. So I don't want to say, I'm telling you that these people I interviewed, even when they were going to school, they found a way to put some aside. And the key is, rather than give you a specific thing, we'll probably go a little bit more in the class when I get to know people a little bit better, but there's lots of people that will help you with your investments. I would just tell you, find out how they get paid. There's a lot of people that will help you in life, and generally they get paid for it. I get paid for it. I make no excuses. I get paid very well for what I do. Every penny, but you will pay me, and you need to know what you're paying me, right? Because there's a lot of products that have big commissions that may not be the right thing for you. And so we talk a lot in my industry about a fiduciary responsibility. So you could come to my office, for example, and say, I want to buy $10 million worth of NVIDIA. And I'm probably going to tell you no, unless I know a lot more about you. Because that would be, even though it might be a phenomenal company, might be a great investment, and for all I know, it's going to triple. But it also might drop in half. You might lose $5 million. I don't know where that $10 million came from. And I don't know your situation. I don't know anything about you. And so it's called the prudent man rule. At least maybe that's not appropriate anymore. I don't know the gender neutral version of that, but the prudent man rule, when I got started, is basically I have to act the way a prudent person would. And a prudent person would not take their entire amount and put it in a single company. That's just, so I have a professional liability for doing that. Does it make sense? I don't know. Did I kind of got off track there
that
now?
kind of gets us into this topic, and this will be the last question I'll ask you before we open it up to the students. I want to talk about risk management, because risk management is something that young adults really don't think about when it comes to financial management. And specifically, you talk about, like a financial risk of like investing, just putting all your eggs in one thing. But we also need to think about, risk transferring, right? To also like insurance and
Yes.
contingency planning and things like that. Could you touch up on that a little bit?
Absolutely. And so again, we'll talk a lot more in the class about this.
Sure, absolutely.
Because this is hard to answer in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, these are very broad topics.
But we live in a world that there are risks that happen. They're not super likely, but they could be catastrophic if they do. And so that's why the insurance industry kind of exists. If you have a family, you have people that are dependent on you for their income, their life, everything, and you, for some unforeseen reason, lose your ability to work or earn, that can be catastrophic to not just you, but to your family. And it might be something as simple as, you were just tired coming home from a long day at work and you fell asleep at the wheel and crossed the lane and you hit somebody, they were injured and sued you, and you're out of, they take everything you have. It's not that they're evil people. It's not that you're a bad person. It's just something happened. It was catastrophic. That's what insurance is for. And so as a student with and I don't mean to generalize, but if you don't have a lot to risk, if you have very little assets right now, well, and if you're not responsible for anyone, well, then you just have to analyze that. You don't need to get a bunch of insurance just because you need it, just because you want a bunch of insurance, right? If I'm single, I have no assets, and I'm just here, I've taken out some student loans, I'm trying to get some assets. Well, I probably don't need $1 million life insurance policy, for example, because what, if you die, it's sad, but you're not obligated to provide for someone you don't know, right? Or just so. But on the other hand, if you have young children, and you're young, so term insurance might be very inexpensive, and for a few dollars a month, that might be worth doing. I've had plenty of clients that have bought insurance. I don't do a lot of insurance, but we do some term insurance. You don't need to understand that. Basically, some life insurance that within a few months they found out they had terminal illness and it provided for their family. So I've seen that happen enough that, again, it's identifying what the risks are and then figuring out, is that a risk I can transfer, or is it a risk I'm just going to accept? And again, as a young student, if you don't own a house, well, you don't need homeowners. But if you have some fairly expensive things in your apartment, you might want renter's insurance because that's not covered. But again, if you have a couch that you found on the side of the road, done that as a kid, if you got, most of my clothes come from Costco, I'm a cheapskate. So, I mean, what's my risk, right? Well, I don't have a lot of risk, so I don't need a lot of some things you don't need to, but that's about transferring risk. Risk, when we talk about business and liability, we'll talk about things like umbrella policies. When I was doing my master's, I had the Arizona State Insurance Commissioner taught my class. It was great. He was retired, fantastic class. And he just told us all, he said, because you all are going to have MBAs, you need an umbrella insurance policy, because no matter how much you actually have, everybody's going to think you have some money and they're going to sue you for a lot. And so you should have back then at least $1 million. And so we talk about what that's a policy that just covers liability, that just keeps you, again, fall asleep at the wheel or something happens. It also, Mike, there you go.
It's basically for like what if, right?
It's what if, and again, that's part of what we do as financial planners. We help our clients identify what are those risks are. Again, if you have a lot of money, there's a lot of different ways that people can try and take it from you, and so we practice that's what we do. Again, as a student, you have risks, right? And I'm not saying you don't, but identify what those are, and some you may transfer by using insurance. Some you may there are other ways to reduce risk.
Well, that's it for my questions, because you covered some of the items which I was going to ask anyway.
Sure.
And so I want to open it up for Q&A. We have about 5 minutes, and so I'll just open it up to anyone if anyone has any questions.
Yes.
I was wondering, you're gonna host a class for next quarter, right, in the winter? If we didn't want the credits per se, could we still sit in for your class?
I don't care. That's a university decision.
Is that,
The class?
I'm not sure about that, but Aubrey or Sally, are you able to address that question? Okay.
I guess if you were just going to the class as an unregistered student, it would be. I guess it would have, like, depend on if the room was large enough to accommodate people that aren't registered for the class. You don't wanna audit because you still pay for the credits, so don't do that.
I'll just say one thing I know, we're planning on having a fair amount of online content.
Yes, we are.
So
And if you're not
you
registered,
probably
you
wouldn't get
probably
that
wouldn't
part
get
of it.
access to
So
that.
there'll be some things. It's homework, but it's kind of all geared about helping you. So you wouldn't have access to that.
Thank you for
online.
reminding me. We do have a Canvas course for this, and there will be a fair amount of just like Dean said, online content, which kind of like prepares you for the classes we're gonna be on Wednesday. So you will not have access to that. I know Sally looked into the possibility of maybe like auditing, but in terms of like extra cost, it's 2 credit, and I believe
Makes sense.
full time is 12 to 18 credits. Okay, Aubrey's saying yes, good, I got it right. Okay, so therefore, if you're anywhere between 12 to 18 credits with the 2 credit class, I don't think it'll be an additional tuition for you if you were to audit. Okay. A question in the back?
Is this class only offered in the spring? Only in the winter?
Yes, it is only offered next quarter in the winter quarter, yes. Question?
Are you only intending, like, is there only going to be an in-person class? Is there gonna be absolutely no asynchronous and no online class?
It will be in person.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yes, pretty much in person. And we feel that that's really important for something like this because of the fact that it gives a chance, opportunity for a dean to get to know you, and also for you to actually interact with dean and also myself too. Because like as you go through this course, you're going to be identifying what your goals are, knowing what your why is. You're going to be actually developing your budget. And so you're going to like develop your whole financial plan. And it is our hope that when you go through this 10, 11 week course, that you will come out with some broad-based understanding of like what actually it takes to actually, I don't know what I want to say, maybe like a jump start your personal finance career. Is that kind of like how you would say it?
Yeah. I mean, again, yeah, that's the hope that this will help you and it'll be very personalized. I think the in-person, I hope there's lots of questions. I hope the students come and they've done some of this preliminary work and they have personal questions, and I'm happy to help with that.
And also like, just like Dean said, he gets paid to do what he does. This is your chance to actually be there and to meet with him and ask him questions. And it's not gonna cost you more than what you're already paying in your full-time tuition.
Yeah, it's cheap.
Okay, so one last question, Kelsey.
I know you said you can't really give this advice,
Yes.
but you did make the statement that saving is important and wealthy people should be saving 10% always. A theme that I'm seeing is high yield saving accounts. And I was wondering if you could touch on the difference between a high yield savings account and the benefits of them rather than just having a standard savings account.
Sure. So the thing to watch on your savings accounts, you go online, you want to be careful that I'd recommend looking for FDIC insurance. And so the threshold is 250,000 or less. And then even if you're with some smaller bank, you've got that government agency guaranteeing that deposit. So if you, for example, if anybody paid attention to Silicon Valley Bank, that saw that in the news, if your deposits were less than $250,000 in an FDIC insured account, you had no risk. But the big issue was you're a small business that might have $10 million worth of payroll, and it was sitting on the bank's balance sheet, and that was the problem. So high yield savings, they're great. There's a number of things out there. You can search those, but again, watch the insurance. The FDIC is what you're looking for, making sure it's insured. If it's not, then you have to be even more, there's an added level of due diligence that you would have to do and what you're actually in.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you for the questions. I just want to thank you for being here and also give you a chance to do any final closing thoughts that you want to leave with the students, any like final advice or key takeaways or anything.
Great to be here. It's an exciting time for you guys, and I really hope that I'm excited. This is a great time to be alive. It's an amazing time to be alive, and you're going to be, you know, you can do whatever you want. I would tell you that at your age, you have time for 3 full careers. So don't get too hung up.
You know,
Enjoy the ride. a
I'm
little
a
bit.
testament to that. I have so many different careers myself, and so with my husband. And so, yeah, you could have multiple careers, yes.
I look
I
at
agree.
at 62, I could go back and get I could be a medical doctor. I think I could probably pass the MCAT. I don't know, or whatever it is, or what, I could probably do, I'm pretty good. But sir, I'm grabbing this mic, that's really gonna mess with the sound, but yeah, you can do, and I'd still have time to probably practice for 10 years. I don't know that I could survive being a
I don't
resident,
think you could survive residency.
not at 75 or whatever.
Well, anyway, thank you, Dean, for being here, and thank you everyone for being here. Just like some of our news up there, we have another workshop tomorrow, Understanding Your Credit Report and Score. It's at the Tioga Library, not here. And so Tioga Library is over there, okay? And also, don't forget to sign up for TBUS 490 if it works with your schedule. And also, by attending this workshop today, you actually check off one of the eligibility criteria for one of our 5 $1,000 scholarships that you could be using in a winter quarter. And so scholarship application closes on 27th of this month after the Thanksgiving holiday break. And so please check our website on how to apply. And that's it, everyone. Thank you for being here.